Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Hey, it's Jeff here with a quick note on schedule changes. We initially said in the show that we were previewing the Houston game, which was set for December the 15th. Well, came out about noon on Thursday that the UCF at Houston game for December 15th has been postponed due to COVID-19 problems with the Cougars. So instead, UCF will play Houston at home on December 26th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, UCF will play Houston at home December 26th at 2 p.m., and then on January 17th, UCF was initially supposed to play Houston at home. Instead, they're going to play that game at Houston on January 17th. So once again, schedule note, UCF at Houston December 15th, postponed. UCF will play Houston at home December 26th at 2 p.m. Eastern. UCF will play at Houston January 17th. 2020, man. Unbelievable. All right, let's get to the show.
This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, and Brian Murphy.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff, Eric, and Brian on a frigid Wednesday, December 9th evening here, where we talk, well, we have a few things to talk about. Obviously, football going to a bowl game. We got men's and women's basketball. I mean, we're almost, it's almost sort of kind of back to normal, right? Like we would be talking about these things in a regular year since it's early December, right, Eric?
Sure. Minus 25 to 35% of college basketball games getting canceled and Big Ten championship games being decided and overruled. Yeah,
and the Big Ten being like, JK, LOL, we're changing our rules for who wins the division in the middle of the season. And yeah.
And bowl bids being accepted right
bowl
right
bids,
now. Yeah.
Yes. But not matchups.
The season's not over yet.
Yeah.
The season's not over.
Well, I mean, we'll talk about that, obviously, to start out. We'll talk about men's basketball recovering from the game against Michigan, which very much did not go their way, and women's basketball going into Baton Rouge and beating LSU pretty good. So lots to talk about here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Remember, you can follow us at UCF_Banneret on Twitter and at Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. Of course, we are at blackandgoldbanneret.com, where we are the home of UCF sports on SB Nation. All right, let's get in. So no football to be had this week, but we did get word of a future football game, didn't we, boys?
Whee!
Yeah, Murph. The UCF is going to play in the Boca Raton Bowl. It's the first time UCF has gone down to Boca to play in this ball game. It will be December 22nd. That's a Tuesday.
Wait a minute. Call it what? Give it the full name. You got to give it the full name.
Oh, yeah. This is the no. We're not giving them any free publicity.
Give it the full name, Jeffrey.
Nope.
Respect the bowl game.
Yeah,
I'm respecting the bowl game. I don't care about the sponsor. 7 p.m. Kickoff for this game 3 days before Christmas. Hey, we get out of there before Christmas. It will be on ESPN. The opponent is not yet determined. We thought it could be another G5 team, but it turns out, according to UCF's release, it will, quote, likely be an Atlantic Coast Conference team, end quote. I'll take it.
Raise the bar.
And, of course, it will be played at FAU Stadium, 30,000-seat venue on the campus of Florida Atlantic University and right next to Boca Raton Municipal So that's where UCF is headed for their for their bowl game. Now, Eric, you and Andrew talked about this the day of. We had an emergency night shift that you guys did, and by the way, thank you for doing that. So they're doing limited public sales for tickets, but this is UCF's first trip to a first bowl game down in South Florida too, in school history. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as cool as the back of the day Blockbuster Bowl back in the day, but
man,
we'll take it.
Don't hate on the Blockbuster Bowl, man.
I love
awesome.
the Blockbuster.
By the way,
Bowl.
do you know what the Blockbuster Bowl is now?
Oh boy, isn't it the Belk Bowl in Carolina or something
Nope.
like that? All right, go ahead.
Guess what? It was the Champ Sports Bowl, but it's now that bowl game in Orlando.
Oh, the Cheez-It Bowl.
The Cheez-It Bowl. Thank you. Yes,
Florida. That's true.
That
Good
is
call.
that is the inheritor of the Blockbuster Bowl. So
Hey, but you can't claim on a roof, like you can in Boca Bowl. So, it's cool, right? They get the bowl game. It gets announced Monday. I think the positives on this obviously are you get to play a game before Christmas. So as a result, you can leave. The players are pretty much free after pre-Christmas. And it's such a weird deal because UCF season finished on Black Friday. There's still multiple weeks left in the season. So it would have been weird if you played as much as I would have liked them to play in the Cure Bowl. And I don't know, we'll get it, at the end of the day, you would have had to wait an extra 4 or 5 days. So, from a date standpoint, and obviously the big news, you mentioned that, it is the fact now that it doesn't look like it's going to be a G5 or a MAC team or a Liberty. It sounds like it's going to be an ACC team. And look, that's going to appeal to some fans that maybe weren't going to be interested in the game. I think from a UCF standpoint, you're hoping that really your alumni in South Florida really kind of is interested more in this game because I don't see a lot of fans from the Orlando market and above making the trip. I think this is one of those where you're hoping to kind of appeal to the South Florida market. I think it makes sense from that standpoint. And if they get an ACC opponent, as we know, and people won't want to admit this, the brands of those conferences like the ACC will appeal to people. So I think from that standpoint, you got to feel good that you're going to get an opportunity. It sounds like against an ACC team, you play, you only have to bus, and you're done before Christmas, and you get extra practices, which I know Josh Heupel, in fact, said on Monday that he's excited for his players, he's excited for his staff, that hey, they get to play in Florida and have a good time.
all right, here's Josh Heupel.
Players and staff alike are really excited about the opportunity to get to go play again. And, being inside the state of Florida, a bunch of our players' families will have an opportunity to come to the game, and for our players, it's been a long haul to get to this point. They're excited about this opportunity and then, still have a chance to get home for Christmas too. So it's a win-win and excited about it. Guys were out on the practice field today. Had some time off last week and energy was good, and they were excited about just getting back out there and competing a little bit.
Josh Heupel talking about UCF's berth in the Boca Raton Bowl. So, Murph, this was pretty much expected. What's
Pretty
this?
much.
Yeah, I mean, what was everybody's kind of reaction on from the folks that you talked to, aside from that, on how this all came to be? What are they thinking about this game?
I think they're just happy that they're gonna. I think the players are happy that they're gonna have a bowl game. We have not been able to talk to any players this week, but certainly from what Josh Heupel has said about at least the guys, being around each other for another few weeks and getting these practices in, they enjoy that. The team posted a video today, Wednesday, of their team dodgeball game. So those sort of camaraderie building things that they get to do now. And kind of, take things a little easier because you're not really preparing for a conference game. It's an exhibition, right? We all know that.
Yeah.
And as far as, who UCF will play, I know that the Boca Raton Bowl doesn't really have a time frame in place when they will make that decision. But I talked to one of the bowl organizers who said that they would most like to do it by the end of the weekend. So by Sunday, they would like to have a second team known. So keep an eye out for that.
Well, you know, based on the fact that what's the ACC? Isn't this their last weekend of regular season games coming up?
Not necessarily, because there's going to be
right.
some games that get made up on December 19th. Like, for example, I think Florida State's playing, I want to say they're playing Wake Forest on the 19th of December. Yeah. Of course, this is all subject to changes.
The championship game is scheduled for the 19th, though.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, there's still going to be games that.
There's still going to be games.
Right.
Yeah. There are teams that are not actually in the championship game. You still have games that they have to make up just to get the full. The full load in, which is going to be bizarre seeing, the conference championship game over here and then other conference games happening at the same time.
Right. Hey man, got to get that paycheck somehow. Look, I think the opponents, from what I've gathered here and just kind of reading things, and it's interesting. I think Pittsburgh, I would say right now, actually is the front runner. There's been some talk that perhaps there's that storyline already built in with that game based on last year's game and how that finished. So the belief is that could be Pittsburgh. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Pittsburgh has a game on December 19th because I think part of this is you're not going to pick a team that's playing on December 19th that's going to, we're going to play 3 days later. That's not going to happen. Yeah. So I think if you're looking for clues, guys, go to the schedule in April and you find out who's scheduled to play on the 19th, who's not scheduled to play. And I believe that Pittsburgh is not. So
they're not. Their last game is actually, is it Thursday? It's this Thursday, it looks like.
That's right. That game got moved up to Thursday. To depending when you're airing, this is probably going to be played or something. So that's, to me, actually, since all the news came out, that would be the front runner here because to me, you have to play. And Andrew and I talked about this on the Night Shift show, which you can still check out on our YouTube page. Make sure you subscribe and give us a thumbs up. But you have to give UCF the opponent by this weekend. You can't wait till literally December 19th. Mm-hmm. I know we had Joe Giglio, who covers the ACC, was trying to make, well, if Clemson wins, so-and-so goes here. And if Notre Dame wins the ACC, then so-and-so goes here. In the normal year, yeah, that makes sense. This is not a normal year. So you have to kind of pick one and just live with it, regardless of what happens in the ACC title game. So I think it's between Pittsburgh and Virginia Tech, to be honest. Some people, I thought Virginia on Monday, but I'm hearing that Virginia may decide not to play in a bowl game and just get it over with because they just don't want to deal with this anymore. You know what I mean? And that is going to happen. You're going to have teams that just don't want to play in bowl games and just say, call it a year, which I respect a ton. So I think it's Virginia Tech or Pittsburgh. And if I had to guess, I think it's going to be Pittsburgh because I think that's the storyline built in. I think they feel that's a good TV game based on the way they're going to play. Now, I'm going to warn everybody, UCF fans, you better be ready for this. If that's the matchup, they're going to play that trick play over and over and over again, leading into that bowl game from last year. They're probably going to even re-air the game. And you're going to get annoyed because they're not going to re-air the game from 2 years ago. There was a blowout. They're going to re-air last year's game because that was one of the top 25 games of the year last year. So you're going to feel very agitated. You're going to accuse ESPN of being biased and why do they hate us?
Oh boy, here we go, Murph.
But I enjoy the Eric's impressions of no one in particular.
Yeah,
because it's the same impression. It's the same impression, but it all works.
It's not fair. Why? They're so biased.
Indignant Eric is one of my favorite Erics, I will say.
Meanwhile,
I will say, Eric, your impression of upset UCF fans, like, they all sound the same. They all sound the very same. We talk about UCF fans who are upset about basketball or any other sport. They all sound very much. Is it the same person? Who are you? Who's your inspiration?
Who are you channeling here? Who are you channeling?
I would argue, yes, I would say that there's a percentage of UCF fans that will just complain about everything no matter what. Yes. So, yes, it's probably the same demographic type of people. And mind you, I'm doing this as a PG version. I do not, so
send all complaints to Eric Lopez Elo on Twitter.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, why do we play? It's funny because everybody is like, oh, why are we playing in Boca? Now all of a sudden we play an ACC team. Hey, I'm interested.
Once again, Eric Lopez Elo on Twitter. I actually just pulled up Joe Giglio's latest projection for the ACC teams.
Yeah,
and you can follow Joe at GIGLIO_OG. He's got it sort of like you were saying, it depends on the ACC championship game scenarios.
Yeah, I just don't agree with him on that though. See, that's the thing. You can't wait till the ACC title game is decided on the 19th. You got to give UCF
No. He's basing it on whatever matchup you get. in the ACC
Right.
championship, which will be decided before the 19th. So he's looking at, but in 3 of his 4 scenarios, he's got either Pitt or Virginia Tech. In one of them, he's got either Pitt or Wake. And looking at that, all right, so I'll start with Wake. They're scheduled to play Louisville on the 12th and Florida State on the 19th at a time to be determined. But, I mean, they may wipe the Florida State game for all we know. Virginia Tech's last game is scheduled to be on the 12th against Virginia. That's this weekend. Right. And Pitt's last game is set for actually tomorrow. That would be Thursday, December 10th at Georgia Tech. So if you're looking at basing it on the amount of time that a team will have to prepare for the game, well, Pitt's going to have the most time out of those 3 times.
Bingo.
That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to pick him though.
No, but that would be the front runner. It would make the most sense. They're done on Thursday. You can announce it by the weekend because Pittsburgh's probably in the same boat. Hey, let's get this game over with and get out of here. You know what I mean? Right. The last thing you want to be doing is wait 20, 25 days for a bowl game in the current climate that we're in. So I think it's going to be Pittsburgh right now. The more I've studied this, I think it's going to end up being Pittsburgh. There's an outside chance that it's the winner of the Virginia Tech game. I would be surprised if it's Wake Forest because they do have a game scheduled against Florida State on the 19th. And even though that could get scrapped, I don't think that game gets scrapped until next week. So they're not going to make them wait. So I think it's either going to be Pittsburgh or one of the Virginia schools. And right now, my gut's telling me, based on everything I've kind of reading between the tea leaves, I think it's Pittsburgh. And there's a storyline there, Murph. That's the storyline. They have the storyline from the way the game ended last year, ending UCF streak. Mm-hmm. That's a built-in storyline, which is what TV wants. And let's be honest, they're creating this game.
Well, they're also 5-5, which is better than Virginia Tech, who's 4-6. And Virginia Tech has lost 4 in a row, right. And 5 of their last 6 coming into this game, including getting drubbed by Clemson. And they also got clobbered by Pitt 47-14. Pitt had won 2 in a row prior to losing to Clemson 52-17 in their most recent game. They've also lost to Notre Dame, Miami, BC, NC State. So, I mean, Pitt's, they're Pitt. It's another middle of the road.
There, folks. That's a shell job.
Wake is 4-3. And they still have officially 2 games left. But, like we said, they could wipe the FSU game altogether.
They could, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to try to play that game, and that's why I don't see Wake Forest. I think Wake Forest, I've heard that they might go to Tampa, right? Isn't that what Giglio has them kind of in Tampa?
He doesn't have them. He may have. No, he has in 2 of his scenarios, or actually 3 of his other scenarios. In the scenarios where he has either Pitt or Virginia Tech going to Boca, he's got Wake going to Charlotte for the Duke's Mayo Bowl.
Which, from a geography standpoint, makes sense. And that's something me and Andrew have talked about when we've written our predictions, that geography, I think, has to play a role in that. And I think Wake Forest would prefer to stay close.
If that's the case, then why are you bringing a team from Pennsylvania down here?
Because there's no bowl game in Pennsylvania. That's got to go somewhere. Where are you going to put them? The closest one would be probably Annapolis. And I think that could be where that's where Virginia Tech's going to end, is in Annapolis. Is I think where they're going to end up. By the way, nothing against Joe. I like Joe. I've talked to Joe before and all that. He's cheating going 3-4 scenarios. Me and Andrew, 1 take, baby, 1 shot. That's all. We're shooting 1 shot. Our predictions 1. We don't make 3 scenarios. We don't make 4. 1 scenario. Come on now. Let's have some conviction.
That's not how I would defend my lack of scenarios, but anyway.
And we're 2 for 2, by the way. We've nailed 2 for 2, especially Andrew.
so hopefully we'll find out this coming, like you were saying, Murph, I think the end of this coming weekend.
That's what the hope is. That is the hope.
Okay.
What do you want to see, Murph? You're going to actually be there, so you actually have to watch the game. What do you want to see?
I want to see a game that actually gets played. That would be.
That's an optimal situation, I think, out of all of them.
I mean, really, guys, let's not forget. Like I said at the beginning of the year, take none of this for granted. So let's get to the game in which UCF plays a team, not some team, just any team. I'll take.
Well, let me ask you in all seriousness, Murph, since you brought it up, and I think it's a valid question, and I don't, I haven't heard an answer on this, so I'm curious if you've heard anything on this. What happens if one of the teams can't play that game? Do they just scrap the bowl game altogether? Do they postpone it, push it back a few days? Has there been any chatter about that as a backup plan? What do we know?
There has not, and I'm sure there might be some. You've probably given me an idea of questions to ask some people, but no, there has not been any chatter that I know of, or at least nothing said to me about what the plans are as a backup in case something like that does happen. Which, yeah, you would need to plan for because 2020 and whatnot.
Well, you got to think, right, guys? Like one, and maybe it's not that bowl game, but I mean, if they're going to try to play all these bowl games, it's only the odds say that's going to happen with some of these bowl games. And maybe the answer is, so what? We just cancel it. We want our practices in, really, right? Is that right, Jeff? You feel that the practices is really what this is about than
that's what the as far as the coaching staff is concerned. You ask any coach to a man, they'll say the value is in the extra practice time they get, and getting younger guys who are going to be moving up into roles, getting them ready and to move into that as you head into the spring. That's the value in the extra practice. I mean, we heard that all the time from O'Leary when going to a bowl was this, oh my God, newfangled thing for UCF. He was like, look, the most important thing is he always wanted to get into a conference that had a lot of bowl tie-ins, which Conference USA at the time did, because because he's like, look, that extra practice time is critical, and I think he's right. Speaking of which, so
transition.
We transition as we await to find out who the opponent is. Obviously, if UCF's going to play, there are going to be some guys who are going to be remaining left to play. Not all of them who were on the entire roster from the beginning of the season. So UCF has 17 seniors officially listed on the roster. 13 of them are redshirt seniors. And now the question becomes, we start the waiting game. Even though this year was basically a free year for everybody, didn't count against anyone's eligibility, there are going to be some players who are going to be moving on. We know about Mackenzie Milton, who is going to be transferring out of UCF, of course.
Really?
No way.
What? Murph, did you know about this? This is shocking.
Several other players who will be Jake Hescock will actually be coming back. But there, like I said, there's aside from that, there's 15 other guys who we still have to await word on. It looks like Marlon Williams is going to be leaving as well.
He's already said so.
He's already said so. A few guys we have no official word on, but I guess my question is, Murph, I'll start with you. Like, of the 17 guys that we're looking at, who are some of the key names that you think would be going or coming back? Because we're talking about, not just, those guys, but, guys like Trey Nixon, Brandon Moore, Richie Grant, I think is probably, we don't know officially what Richie Grant's going to do, but some key offensive linemen like Josh McMullen, right? Christopher Deloach, Noah Hancock on the defensive front. We still haven't heard anything from Otis Anderson or Greg McCrae yet officially. So, what do we know? How many of these guys do you think are going to stay? How many of them do you think are going to go?
Well, there are guys on different levels of staying or going spectrum, right? Like Marlon has already said he's gone. Mm-hmm. He's going. And I guess Otis has already said it publicly, like on Instagram. There's some stuff on there on Instagram that looks like a retrospective, like a thanks for everything sort of video, but it's kind of taking a misty tone. It's misty, it's a little nebulous,
a little nostalgic.
But that is sort of beside the point of like, of course Otis Anderson's not coming back. He's going to go to the next level. Of course Richie Grant's not going back. He's going to the next level. Of course Aaron Robinson's not coming back. He's going to the next level. Both those guys, Richie and Aaron, playing in the Reese's Senior Bowl in January. And I think then it kind of gets nebulous as far as like, well, those are your clear like NFL upside guys. Like maybe Greg McCrae's in there too. I tend to think not. But like certainly those four, the Marlon, Otis, Richie, and Aaron definitely are. And then I don't know. Brandon Moore's an interesting guy because he hasn't played in basically 2 seasons. It's like, right. What does he do? Trey Nixon, had a lot of I wouldn't say pressure on him this year. But certainly a lot of people were focusing on him this year as a leader in that receiving core without Gabe Davis, and he gets hurt in the season opener and misses basically the entire season. What does he do? Does he take advantage of the next year? Like you said, Jeffrey, We don't know, but I guess that doesn't stop us from recklessly speculating.
After all, what else are we going to do on a week like this?
It never has stopped us before, so why should it stop us now? I don't really. And to be honest, outside of the guys I named, I really, really don't know. I really don't know. I guess we'll find out once we get to Boca, because then whoever's not playing there, then you can tell.
Yeah. Eric, what about you? I tend to think the two most interesting cases to me are Trey Nixon and Brandon Moore because of the injuries that they suffered. Like you said, Murph, Trey was, I think projected. I think I saw one source in the NFL draft. He was like a top 15 wide receiver, not 15 overall, but top 15 wide receiver, and then he basically did not play for most of the season and wasn't overly productive in the games after he did return because he was still adjusting to coming back. Brandon Moore, like you said, is still recovering from his leg injury that he suffered 2 years ago basically. So Eric, what do you think about it? If you were those two guys, would you have a free year coming back? Would you come back or would you take your shot?
I think if you're Brandon Moore, I think you come back just to prove you could play on the field, be healthy. I think he's got a chance by coming back to get his stock back up to show that he's healthy and he's close to what he was prior to the injury. Whereas I think Trey Nixon, I think he's gone. Remember, he transferred from Ole Miss to UCF. He got hurt. He came back, which surprised me. I didn't know if he was going to be back. He came back, played in the Cincinnati game, played in the South Florida game. I'll be curious, very curious, if he plays in the bowl game, because he could decide, you know what, I'm going to play in this bowl game to just continue my stock for the draft.
He kind of does have an upside, even if he doesn't return next year, of playing in the bowl game.
Yeah, if and we're going to have this game, but folks, and this is why you need to follow Brian on Twitter, because he will be the first to let us know who's playing, who's not, who's dressed, who's not, what are they wearing when they're warming up. It's like Adam Schefter on NFL injuries.
No, it's like the red carpet at the Oscars. Who are you wearing, Trey?
Yeah, right. And I'm the guy that I'm the most interested in on that night to see what Brian tweets about is Trey Nixon, and because I want to see what his mindset is, because I could see this two ways. You could play because you feel that bowl game can help enhance your chances of the NFL, especially now if you're going to play, and let's say it's a Pittsburgh or whoever, and they have a high level DB that could help your stock. Or does Trey feel like, hey, I've got back, I played in 2 games, I have enough film, I proved I'm healthy. Now let me just focus about the NFL draft. I could see that going either way with Trey. I don't think Trey returns in 2021 regardless, because I think, to me, I think in Trey's mind, it's like, hey, I got away with one here with an injury. I don't think unless he just gets bad reviews, like, hey, man, you're not going to get drafted or something. Mm-hmm. I think he's gone. And I think Greg McCrae is another one that I'll be curious about, because I don't think he has a high draft ceiling per se, but at the same time, he's a running back. And running backs in the NFL draft are kind of a dime a dozen. And we've seen this where you don't have to get drafted high to land somewhere. And if I'm Greg McCrae, do you feel that you've used up your body enough that, hey, it's time to get paid, and I don't want to risk another year of getting beat up in the backfield? So I'm curious if Greg plays the bowl game, number 1. And then number 2, if he doesn't, he could still come back. But I think that could be, if he doesn't play in the bowl game, that might give you an idea what he's thinking there as far as his future. So those are the 2 guys that I am the most interested to see if they show up to Boca on December 22nd or not, because I think that I'm very fascinated by what decision both of them make, because I think in Greg's case, I could see that go either way. And even to some extent Trey, but I'm very fascinated to see how they come up with their decision between now and that bowl game.
Yeah, that's a tough. Listen, I don't envy either of those guys. I mean, that's tough. That's a really tough decision to make. Go ahead, Murph.
One thing I'll say about Greg McCrae is it was a couple weeks ago he was asked some questions about what does he want people to remember of Greg McCrae as a UCF player, and he was sort of we asked him questions, basically, reflecting on his career, and he was very receptive to that, and talked about how he wants to be remembered in a UCF uniform, and for what he's done on the field. But and so what's interesting about that is when we asked the same questions to Jake Hescock, he basically cut us off right away and was like, well, he kind of answered it a little bit, but then was like, but I'm coming back next year. And Greg didn't do that. So Greg, maybe Greg comes back or not, I don't know, but he certainly is not giving us any hints that he's coming back. I would say that the insinuation, it seems as if Greg is not coming back. But yes, we don't know. And then if you want to talk about like redshirt juniors, which I know Jeff was interested in before the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really see anyone here. But I'll mention some of the notable guys: Anthony Montalvo, Sam Jackson, Cole Schneider, Parker Boudreaux, who I guess has fallen into some vortex never to be seen again. Because again, I don't know when.
Some vortex.
Then Tavius Thompson, Gabe Davis, who opted out, but it said
sounds like an angle on Parker Boudreaux there, Murph. I'm not gonna lie.
Well,
Oh, you saw what he did there, Murph? He went with an angle.
He went with the wrestling parlance. I enjoy it.
Thought you guys would be proud of me for that one. Anyway, carry on.
I'm proud of you. I am excited about it.
Kalia Davis, who opted out of the season at the start, but said actually the same day that became known that he'll come back for his next season. And Stephon Zayas, who really kind of waned in his playing time later on in the year and then didn't play at all. Wasn't at the game against USF for unknown reasons, and he didn't play due to, I assume, an injury. But I don't see anyone there that is going to bolt for the for the NFL. Maybe someone transfers or something like that.
There you go. See, that's the key there. I think some of those, and we'll get into this more next week because signing day. But I think the transfer portal will be fascinating after the bowl games and some of these decisions. If the guys feel that they're not going to play next year here, even if they have the extra year, they may decide to go somewhere else and say, I'm going to play somewhere else, not necessarily in the NFL. And then, the Parker thing, that's a good line you used there, Jeffrey, because that's a unique circumstances. We don't know what health-wise, hopefully he's okay and things like that. But there's been speculation that he's going to have unique options, whether it be pursuing professional football or he may pursue professional wrestling. That's not a joke. That's been a very bad rumor. Like, it's been a long story that's been out there for a while, that if he decides to go into professional wrestling, there will be contracts waiting for him because of his physique, his look, and things like that, and that he's a prospect. And both the WWE and the AEW now, they look at football players that don't go on to play professionally as guys they want to bring in and develop. So I do think that is worth monitoring as far as Parker and his future is concerned.
All right.
I'm waiting for a Cal Bloom reference.
Oh,
no, you're gonna get a The Rock reference, obviously, because Dwayne Johnson, obviously former football player at the U. So he's certainly the most. Don't forget Bill Goldberg.
Yeah.
Yep. Played.
I think Murph meant because there's already been speculation on the message boards about him and Cal Bloom, like maybe teaming up and being known as the Night Destroyers. Huh?
What?
Oh, I would be so in on that.
Huh?
I would be so in on that.
No, Murph doesn't sound like a fan of that.
Please tell me this isn't something Sam cooked up.
No, it's not Sam.
Okay.
I would rather have someone go back and workshop that name a little more. I know you want to pigeonhole the word Night in there, but Night Destroyers, we can
it's
do
like
better.
They're destroying knights.
Maybe we just came up with a storyline.
Lopez, are you angling to be their promoter? Their
manager.
Their manager. Yeah.
Their manager. Absolutely. Take me,
ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eric Lopez.
That's right. I'm the advocate for this Knights alum. It could be big. I agree. I definitely would be honored to take and if that's what they decide to do. So we'll see. Actually, Sam Unger, our listener that I heard, he believes, and I kind of agree. I think he's going to end up if he does go into professional wrestling, it probably will be the AEW company, because Jim Ross has not hidden the fact of his interest in Parker Boudreaux's services.
Wow. Fantastic.
I want the exclusive if he does. That's all I say. If he decides to go that route, I want the exclusive. Yeah, but I gladly would be the advocate.
I love that.
Gosh, that would be something. All right. Let's take a quick break here, and when we return, we'll talk some men's basketball. Rough outing up in Ann Arbor for the Knights. Boy, looked good for a little bit, and then I don't know. We'll talk about what happened after that and plenty more when we return. This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Back after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
All right, welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff, Eric, and Brian with you on this Wednesday night when we're recording. We flip over to men's basketball, who are back at 500 on the year after a curious game in against Michigan in Ann Arbor on Sunday. All right, so it started out looking real good. All right, so UCF was in great shape against Michigan. They were up by double digits, right, Murph? As much as 12 in this game, 28-16, with 8:56 to go in the first half after a three by Brandon Mahan, and then something happened. And my question to you is, what?
What happened was this team did two things wrong. Well, one thing they did really wrong, and then it sort of bled over to something else that sort of doomed them. The thing they did wrong is they stopped basically trying, for better or worse, to get the ball into the paint. So Jeffrey, up until that 9-minute mark of that first half, when Mahan hits that three, makes it 28-16. Up to that point, UCF had already had 14 paint points of those 26 points. They had 14 paint points. And then from that 9-minute mark, through the next 20 minutes of game time, they took 7 shots in the paint and scored 8 points in the paint for the rest of the game. And so there's two things about that. One, Michigan certainly did more to stop UCF driving offense. They were able to sort of get in the lane at will early on, and then they bring in Hunter Dickinson, who's the 7'1" freshman who's been really good for Michigan so far, and he had another impactful game. Played 24 minutes, had 14.7 rebounds. I think really did a good job of keeping UCF out of the paint. But then UCF just abandoned that altogether and didn't really try to go back to it at all. And then once their shots weren't falling, that led over to their defense, which I thought was really, really good early on. The movement was good. They were running some zone in which they looked really in sync and moving well. But then, man, after that, they were biting on every single penetrating dish. They were leaving guys open for threes all over the place. It was all very wrong. So I asked Johnny Dawkins after the game what they needed to work on most going into their next game, which was, they had 9 days between this game and the game against Houston next week. So I asked him, what is the number one thing this team needs to work on? And did he feel like his team was settling for jump shots when they went in that offensive drought?
After today's game, defense. I thought the last game we defended fairly well. This game right here, it's the exact opposite. I didn't think we defended very well at all in either half. I thought the first 20 minutes was good, but I didn't think our defense was as sound as it needed to be. In the second half, I definitely don't think it was as good as it needed to be.
Coach, when you guys went into that offensive drought in the first half, did you feel like the team was settling too much for jumpers outside of the paint? Because you were getting into the lane at oftentimes early on. Did you guys feel like you guys settled after that? Absolutely. That's what I mean by we got out of character. I thought we were doing some things that were working for us, and we didn't stick with it. We decided to go another direction, and that's stuff we have to teach. I mean, these guys haven't been in those positions before, and so things that we have to work on. I can't expect them to know all of those things, and guys are in different positions, and guys are running a team that hadn't been running a team before. So we have to keep teaching.
That is Johnny Dawkins after the Michigan game. 80-58 was the final. By the way, Michigan from that point where UCF was up 12 in the first half outscored the Knights 64-30.
Not what you want.
Not what you want. Nope. Bright spots for UCF, however. Brandon Mahan had a solid game, 7 of 13 from the field, 5 of 5 at the line, 21 points, 5 rebounds, only 1 turnover. And Isaiah Adams also accounted himself quite nicely, 5 of 12 from the field, 11 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 steals. For Michigan on the other side, it was their leading. They had 4 guys in double figures, led by Shondae Brown, who was 7 of 12 from the field. He had 18 points, also 14 points for Hunter Dickinson, who is the 7-foot guy who you were talking about, who played 24 minutes in that game and was and did not miss. He was 6 of 6 from the field and 2 of 2 at the foul line. So let me ask you this, Murph: so they're without Tony? UCF is without Tony Johnson Jr.
Yep.
And they're not going to have Darius Perry for at least the foreseeable future for to this point in this month. Is this lack of a true point guard, how much is this really hurting them right now?
Absolutely. It's definitely a factor. It's not helping them get into their offense. Now, they've done a good job at times where they're able to force turnovers or get loose or get missed shots and get out on break. They're able to actually create off. I think they actually create offense pretty well when they don't have to slow down into a half-court set. But, man, when they get into a half-court set, and sometimes it can be really difficult from there for them to set up a good shot, especially when you saw in this game where, Michigan did a good job of taking away those dribble drives and taking away the paint area. And then okay, well, now we need to find a way to create offense elsewhere. And they absolutely could not do it whatsoever. It was painful to watch much of the time in the second half because a lot of it was just passing the ball around the perimeter, times running down on the clock, and in 5 seconds you try to force something. And it was just they couldn't get anything set, and you don't have a floor general to do that. And I think Johnny Dawkins realizes that he has guys who are playing roles that they weren't asked to do, playing roles that they really haven't practiced in much. Like Dre Fuller and Isaiah Adams, basically being point guards at this point, which is, again, it's not their strength. It's really not what they've been meant to do here. And then a couple other things that I thought affected this team is, CJ Walker, had another really ragged game, a game where it just feels like he's out of control right now. And so, yes, we talked about the raw materials in his Auburn performance, and you saw when he settles in a little bit, he can be really good. He never did that here. It just didn't feel like he was in any part of the game. I believe he got into foul trouble too.
He fouled out of the game with 2 points on 0-3. I thought Michigan, from what I saw, I thought Michigan did a pretty good job also clamping down on him. They weren't going to let him. They knew he was the athletic guy coming in, and they weren't going to let him beat him.
I also thought that when he did have a chance, it just seemed like he's going too fast. I think I had the same statement against the Auburn game. Like he's going too fast right now, and apparently he suffered an injury, in the summer, which kind of cut back on his practice time with the team. So not only is he coming into a new program regardless, but he then had his practice time limited by this injury. So he has a lot of catching up to do. And again, I'm not trying to castigate a guy for two, one bad game and one so-so game. Like, it just looks like, everybody wants him to be great right away because he's got all this potential, all this hype. It's not there yet. He's very much just a lump of clay right now that needs to be molded into something greater.
But in fairness, Murph, in the Auburn game, I mean, they kind of need his presence, even if he's not clicking. Like, he played over 30-some minutes in that Auburn game, and he is a factor inside. And I think we saw here, Murph, when he was in foul trouble, he was on the bench against Michigan. I know it's Michigan, but UCF inside, they kind of struggled a little bit. And, I'm not going to say it every time, but we kind of saw where they missed Colin Smith there, right? Like, all of a sudden you saw you're a little thin inside there without Walker, who is a guy who can alter shots. He's got to stay on the court because without him, I think they might struggle from a rim protection standpoint and from the paint.
Yeah, I mean, he played only 6 minutes in the first half because of foul trouble. He had 2 fouls early. And yeah, that makes sense. I'm just saying that when he's out there still, he's out of control a little bit. But yes, they need him. They need him out there because of just his pure ability. And so because he has that. He just needs to refine it. It's sort of out of control right now. I was surprised that just a couple of things that I'm sort of like emptying the notebook here. I was surprised that in this matchup with Michigan, which is a bigger team than Auburn, they didn't use Avery Diggs at all, and I think it tells you what they think about Avery Diggs. He's really become a guy who is only in the game unless things get out of hand, which is interesting because obviously last year he was basically the backup to Colin Smith.
Yeah,
he's now basically persona non grata at this point. And Jameel Reynolds has looked good, has flashes of looking good in very short segments. And true freshman, very, very limited summer. It's very difficult for these freshmen to look good, which really, gives me a lot of hope for Isaiah Adams, who has been one of their best players early on. But Jameel Reynolds, who no one's really talking about, I thought has done some really nice things in his limited time on the floor. He's dealt with some foul trouble too. He needs to be better in learning his defensive position and how to guard more properly. But there's a lot there to like too. So again, this is all very much a work in progress, not just this year, but for the years ahead. And there's plenty of work to be done in the next week or so before their next game. And like Johnny Dawkins said in that clip, they need to work on defense. And you saw that in the second half where their defense was just very, very undisciplined and chasing all over the place. And Johnny Dawkins will not tolerate a team that doesn't play this. Not going to do it. Yeah. Won't do it, as Mike Singletary.
Well, especially Murph, and you and I were in that post game. He was angry about his defense, and I think he knows without Perry, without Johnson, the offense is going to have its issues without a true point guard. It's just it's not easy. That's the value of the point guard, is to run the offense. So they're going to have their ups and downs, but he needs that defense to carry them and be the consistency. And even in that first half, and he said they played all right, but Michigan still got good shots. They shot 50% from the field. By the way, let's give credit to Michigan too. I think, is a top 25 team in a loaded Big Ten. And I actually think, and Jeff, I think you and I kind of have the same philosophy on this. The worst thing that happened was they got pushed to overtime by Oakland. And I read some of the Michigan papers up there, and it was almost like, come to Jesus moment. They're like, all right, we got to get back to some fundamental. And in other words, their attention, they were going to be ready to play. And they executed very
yeah, it just so happened that we were the ones standing in the way after that debacle.
Exactly. Like, I would have preferred they would have blown out Oakland by 40 and, hey, everything's hunky-dory. But that defense wasn't there, and they're going to have to be there. They're going to have to carry them. If they're going to win some games here until Perry gets back, they're going to have to win with defense, Murph. They're not – I mean, the offense is what it is. It's going to have its moments, and it's going to have its moments where it looks good, and it's going to have its moments where it doesn't look good, but they need that defense to carry them. And I think that's why Johnny was upset, really, on Sunday, because the defense didn't give him a chance.
Well, they're going to get – oh, go ahead, Murph. I'm sorry.
No, just quick, Jeffrey. He was upset because the bad offense led to bad defense, and you can't let one side of the floor affect how you play on the other side of the floor.
Yep. Well, they're going to have to – they got 9 days to figure this out, because now comes the real test. Now, again, this is like you said, maybe, Eric. Now, the next game on the slate is at Houston. Number 10 Houston, by the way, who's 4-0 on the season.
They're actually 7th now.
They're 7th? Okay. December 15th, that's a Tuesday at 9 p.m. That's at Houston. It's supposed to be on ESPN2. Houston, like I said, 4-0. 3 of those wins have come against Boise State, Texas Tech, and South Carolina, all by double digits. However, they've had their last 2 games postponed due to COVID against Sam Houston State and Rice. Their only road game that they played, by the way, has been the one against Texas Tech. So they're in the middle of this long.
Fort Worth. Yeah.
So now they're in this long homestand at the Fertitta Center with UCF coming up. But like we said, they're running into some COVID issues right now. So that game is. Well, hopefully they'll be able to iron that out before the game happens, obviously. But assuming they play, this is the big test for UCF right now coming up, because after that, 4 days later, you're at Florida State, and of course Florida State's very good. We saw them actually win earlier today, but the Houston's a conference game, and your conference opener against what is the against the favorite to win the league in their house. And is there a possibility, Murph, that we might see Darius Perry back in time for this game?
I don't think so. Not the way that Johnny Dawkins talked about it on Friday before the Michigan game. He was asked about it and said that he anticipates Darius being ready to go at some point before the end of before the start of the new year, and then also sort of came back and said, well, there's not really a firm timetable, but it sounds like at the very earliest he would be back late December, not mid-December. So no, I don't think you'd see Darius Perry in this game. And then for those, and then we can update Tony Johnson status on Friday. Johnny Dawkins said that he basically will be out a while. Didn't specify how long, but it sounds like it's gonna be a long, long time. Tony Johnson is undergoing surgery for his injury, which he suffered coming out of warmups in the second half of that Auburn game, which is a really
bizarre.
Yeah. So UCF's gonna be without a true point guard for probably the Houston game, probably the FSU game as well.
Heck of a time to not have that, because not just at Houston, at FSU. Then the next game is a home game against Cincinnati.
Right.
So,
yes, it's not great.
It's not what you want, as you always say.
But the thing, what's amazing though, Houston doesn't want to hear it because they're coming off a victory against South Carolina. Get this, without their star player Caleb Mills, who had 2 sprained ankles, so he was out. They were also without their leading scorer, Marcus Sasser, who also sprained his ankle and was out for that game. And then you had Calvin Sampson and his son, Kellen, who were both out of the game due to COVID-19 contact tracing protocols. And they still beat South Carolina.
Kellen actually has the virus, and that's why.
Okay, so that's been updated since. Okay, so that, and they still won, though. Give them credit. So they're obviously dealing with that, which obviously we'll see what the status is for that game against UCF. You just hope everybody's okay in that scenario. And then, Murph, who do you think, do you think the interim coach in that game, just took off the jacket and the tie in honor?
No.
Man.
No.
I mean, that's the big storyline next week, really.
You can't upstage the boss like that. It just doesn't work that way.
Okay, so you just don't even try it, right? It's kind of like it's kind of like the movie actors, right? Like, you're Jason Patrick. You're not following Keanu Reeves in Speed 2.
Exactly.
So you might as well just, I understand.
It's a good point. So, all right. So that's the situation that UCF men's basketball is in right now with this game against Houston.
Don't panic, everybody.
Don't panic.
It's fine. Michigan's really good.
Yeah, Michigan is good. I think they're better than probably people even in the Big Ten think. And the key is going to be with what happens right around the new year, Murph. I think, like you were saying, I know there's no firm timetable on when we would see Darius Perry or Tony Johnson Jr. come back, but it's impossible to judge the team based on not having those guys without having those guys out there on the floor. It's critically important. So, all right, we're going to take a breather. When we get back, women's basketball, they had a big road non-conference game against a power conference opponent, and they took it to LSU. We'll talk about that game in a little bit more when we wrap up. This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Stick around. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, Brian Murphy with you as we flip over to women's basketball. And boy, did they take care of LSU the other night as well. Back on Friday night, a couple days after we recorded last week's show, they go into Baton Rouge and just take it to the Tigers in the first half. They're up 30-12 at the break. LSU tried to sneak back into the game late in the third quarter, into the fourth quarter, but UCF just kind of stiff-armed them down the stretch. 58-48 was the final, but it was not that close. Cortasia Sanders, 22. Boy, has she been something this year, huh? 22 points, 4 rebounds, 9 of 14 from the field. Diamond Battles was excellent in this game, running the show. 9 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists to lead the team. Brittany Smith, the other night in double figures, 6 of 13, 13 points, and 3 rebounds for UCF. So the Knights, by the way, who who only attempted 3 3-pointers the entire game, which is exactly what Coach Abe wants. Take care of LSU in Baton Rouge, and UCF is 2-0, Eric Lopez. I was following that game pretty tightly, and I was really impressed with the defense. Once again, LSU could not figure out that matchup zone.
They couldn't. I mean, it was funny. LSU scored the first 3 points of the game and then did not score for 10 minutes in the game. They did not hit a field goal.
An entire quarter, basically.
Yeah. And UCF outscored them 22-0. They led 22-3 at one point and dominated. Yeah. And you mentioned Tay Sanders was fantastic. I watched. She played. Her game reminds me of a Kawhi Leonard type from the standpoint of defensively. She has range, length, big arms, can just deflect balls, which is just tremendous in that zone. And then offensively in that game, she's taken her game to a different level. Is taking high percentage shots. Is not in a rush. Just reminds me a lot of Kawhi. And Coach Abe said after the game, this was a huge win for them to go to LSU, win the game, big for them, and obviously Tay Sanders being the star of the game.
I'm so excited for our players. They're phenomenal. They came in here with great energy. They came in to shoot around with great energy. I thought our captains did a good job of getting everybody ready. I thought our coaches did a good job of getting everybody ready for this scouting report. I think that we played phenomenal team defense, and during this time that we haven't had a lot of time to prepare, coming into this gym and playing a really good program like LSU, it speaks volumes for our players, and they played with a lot of energy and really no fear. It was great. Sanders did a great job. She's actually done really well for 2 games. I mean, defensively, she's so good, and her and Diamond really played well together in terms of getting tips and steals and layups and running in transition, and so it was fun to watch. I mean, I think she hit a 3, and she's really stepping up offensively for us, so I'm super proud of her. And I'm also proud of all the other players that came in the game, because we got in foul trouble early and we had to sit some people, and everybody came in and did a good job and bought in and played really good defense, and I just think everybody just contributed well.
It's Coach Abe after the LSU game. By the way, that first half, Eric, that you were talking about, UCF held LSU to, get this, 3 of 24 from the field.
Yep,
3 of 24.
12.5%.
Yeah, in the first half. 0 for 7 in the first quarter.
Yeah, they were ferocious and really dominated the paint. Yeah. Which was stunning. We talked last week about LSU size. I mean, they got bigs at 6'5" and taller, and UCF still dominated the paint. I think they outscored them like 32-6. So very impressive win. I think it's the biggest non-conference win in the Abe era, beating LSU, marquee opponent there. That's a team that was going to make the tournament last year. It's a signature win. It's one of the bigger non-conference wins you could argue in the history of this program. And let's be honest, Murph, it's payback for that Fiesta Bowl. I know our own Jeremy Brenner, who was with you in Glendale when we lost LSU in football, he was super psyched about this win at LSU, because I think that in his mind, this is payback for the Fiesta Bowl. Payback.
Absolutely. I don't know what else you could have made out of it. This is definitely payback.
But it's huge. It's a huge start. Let's say 2-0, Virginia and LSU, dominant defense. It's a great start. You can't ask for anything more from this team. But yet, I think now you could make the argument that their schedule is only going to get tougher here. Big 2-game stretch coming up here at home, starting with Florida Gulf Coast on Sunday, who has been a perennial power in the A-Sun. It's a team that to the perennial NCAA tournament team, and they run that unique offense. It's kind of like what the Houston Rockets and you see in the NBA with the Golden State Warriors, where they just spread you out and shoot threes all game long. And that's Florida Gulf Coast game. They are number 1 in the country in three-pointers attempt per game. They average 41 threes a game. 41. Think about it. There's 40 minutes in a college basketball game, and they average 41 threes. That's almost a 3 per minute. That is insane. Now, this year's team is off to a cold start by their standards. They only rank 3rd in the country in three-pointers made. They average about 10 per game. So that's going to be the challenge for this defense for UCF. They played them last year at Florida Gulf Coast. They got shot off the court. I mean, Florida Gulf Coast hit 16 of 39 against UCF last year and kind of blew them out at Florida Gulf Coast. But that was a better Florida Gulf Coast team that had their all-conference all-star player in David Wingate's daughter, who hit 7 of those threes. She's graduated, thankfully. So, but that's going to be the challenge, Jeff. It's going to be UCF's defense guarding that perimeter in that zone against the Florida Gulf Coast three-point offense. I'm fascinated to see the contrast there. And UCF, it'll be interesting. A lot of the veterans got to experience that last year. Does that experience last year help them on Sunday? We're going to find out.
Yeah, by the way, that 1-2 point guard punch that UCF is showing right now with Diamond Battles in the starting 5 and Alicia Lewis coming off the bench. Alicia came off the bench.
D-Lish. They're the nickname, the word is, they're going to be, the tandem is known as D-Lish.
So I'm all for it because Lewis came off the bench and played 36 minutes. And even though she was only 1 for 2 from the field, she had 5 assists and was a force on defense too. 2 steals.
She's been tremendous.
She's been great. And Diamond is really something, man. She has improved so much. She's been fun to watch. Now we talked about the game coming up against Florida Gulf Coast. After that, 48 hours later, UCF opens their conference slate against Tulane. By the way, both these games will be on ESPN Plus. Sunday 2 p.m. UCF against Florida Gulf Coast. Time to be determined Tuesday against Tulane. That both these games will be at home on ESPN Plus. But the note on Tulane, by the way, UCF, second in the nation right now. I know it's through 2 games, but second in the nation right now in scoring defense, averaging 41 points a game given up. 6th in the nation in field goal percentage defense, by the way, too. So defense is definitely the calling card right here. And interesting that, don't tell Coach Abe I said this, but tied for second in the country in 3-point field goal percentage. Offense.
Wow.
They're at 50% right on the dot.
You're saying, Jeff, they should shoot more threes. All right.
Yeah, shoot more threes.
I don't think she'll agree with that.
I know she won't, but you know what? I'm going to make my case. Like they're shooting 50% from 3-point range right now. So Tulane comes in, they're 3-1. Their only loss was to Georgia Tech in Atlanta. They're coming off of a victory at Middle Tennessee, 81-78. Tulane really not overly impressive in terms of the team stats so far this season. But when we look at their roster, at least to this point, individually speaking, their leading scorer right now for the game is Jerkayla Jordan, who is averaging 19.3 points per game. They have 3 players averaging double figures: Jordan, Crystal Freeman, and Arsula Clark. Freeman, by the way, has been there for quite some time. She's a senior. Jordan is a freshman, true freshman from New Orleans. She went to John Curtis High School, and she's their starting point guard now, and she has just gone off in these first 4 games for them. She's like we said, averaging right just shy of 20 points a game, and is shooting 43% from the field and 43% from beyond the arc as well. And oh, by the way, I know one of the cliches about freshmen is they don't shoot free throws well. Well, she's shooting 74% from the
Jordan
free throw straight,
she was the freshman of the week in the league. Tulane was a trendy pick in the league as far as winning the conference. UCF, USF, they were picked top 2. USF was the preseason favored. UCF was second. Tulane was picked third, I believe. They're kind of the trendy pick. They have a lot of players coming back. You add a freshman like Jordan. This is a big, just like the men, this is a big opener for the women here at home against a Tulane team that's given them fits. They have been the thorn, really. If you look at the UCF run here in the last few years, Tulane's been that team that has clipped them, especially when they play at Tulane. Tulane's been a good at home. The good news is this game's at UCF, but this is an early marquee game in a league, Jeffrey, that made a huge statement this past weekend. We talked about the UCF win against LSU, but this was part of their American SEC Challenge. South Florida beats number 6 Mississippi State. Mm-hmm. Houston beats Auburn. Houston's got wins over Oklahoma and Auburn early on. That's the former assistant, by the way, of Joy Williams that's doing there at Houston, the head coach there. So what I'm saying is this league kind of stepping up right now, and a big statement early with some marquee wins. Cincinnati beat Kentucky, I believe, earlier this year as well. Lost to Florida over the weekend, but they're kind of stepping their game up. And I have this. There's been a theory thrown out here, and I want your thoughts on this, Jeffrey. The theory out there, and I think this applies to the UCF team as well. The questions at UCF was, what's going to happen with KK Wright moving on? And I think the question in the league was, what's going to happen with UConn moving on? And I think both sides, both UCF and the league, have kind of stepped up. And one comparison that I've thought about was back to football when Tennessee, remember when Tennessee, Peyton Manning, they're in the mix, and then Peyton Manning graduates. It's like, man, what's going to happen to Tennessee? Well, everybody else around them stepped up their game the next year, knowing that Peyton wasn't going to be around, and they won a national title.
Yeah, with T. Martin.
And I kind of feel like that is kind of could be a factor here with UCF. All the players, I think, knew that KK was graduating. I mean, Diamond Battles just talked about knowing that her responsibilities and her role would be bigger because KK wasn't going to be around. Not that, I mean, they all love KK, but they knew they had to step up. You couldn't just depend on her to bail you out anymore. And I think in the league, across the league, I think there's a chip on the shoulder. Everybody is kind of stepping up their game to show, hey, now that, just because UConn left doesn't mean that, we could be still a good league. And I think actually in a weird way, the league might be better off because there's that urgency of, hey, we are playing for something. We're playing for a conference championship. We weren't just the UConn leftovers. And I think both sides there have kind of risen their game here.
Well, regarding the teams, definitely, because, now everyone actually has a chance to get that trophy, right? Where before it was, we've even talked about that. Like it was UConn and then there was everybody else. As far as UCF is concerned, but let's not forget about all the players who've developed too. Like, I mean, we've talked about, how much, it was Masni Kava and Brittany Smith inside that was going to be the key for this team coming in. But, let's not forget, like we talked about how key Diamond Battles has been, and they're running this 2-point guard system with her and Alicia Lewis that's really been working well. A couple of notes on Tulane, by the way. Even though this game will be at Edition Financial Arena, UCF has won the last, 2 against Tulane at Edition Financial Arena. Tulane traditionally has dominated the series, even going back a while, back to 2006 when both these teams were in Conference USA, although UCF has won 4 of the last 6, and the 2 losses were both in New Orleans by basically a basket. 2019, UCF lost by 2, and last year UCF lost by 1. So that's how close this series has been. Although each one of those last 6 meetings has been decided by single digits, except for one. UCF won by 10 in March of 2019. So these two teams are playing tight with each other. It is going to be a good test to start in conference.
Key stat to follow in that game. Offensive rebounds. Tulane has been good in offensive rebounds. In fact, going in their first 3 games, they're averaging over 16 offensive rebounds. That's second best in the league. And that, that's given UCF fits when they've played. And even Coach Abe has talked about one of the things they've kind of are behind right now is boxing out. Mm-hmm. They're trying to improve boxing out. They haven't had all the reps. And they've even in the Virginia game, they gave up some offensive rebounds. Even in the LSU game, when LSU made a run, they gave up some offensive rebounds. They got to shore that up in the next 2 games, because Florida Gulf Coast, I mentioned, they shoot 41 threes. What does that mean? A lot of long rebounds. So you got to box out, and then Tulane's very good at boxing out in offensive rebounds. That's a key stat. UCF's not, they got to get rebound better. They have size advantage. They got to rebound defensively better, and they're a great defensive team. You don't want to give that team a second, third opportunity in a possession offensively. That's a stat to keep in mind here in the next couple games against Florida Gulf Coast and Tulane especially.
Yeah, one of the interesting things I think that I like to look at, and this is kind of a nerdy stat a little bit, but it's I always find it actually kind of fun to look at, and I want to actually pull it up here when I get the chance. But there's a stat that coaches like to look at called offensive and defensive rebounding percentage, which is how many rebounds do you get defensively versus the other team's offensive rebounds, and vice versa. So I'm actually trying to pull it up here on
Wow, look at this, Murph. Jeff's Mr. Analytics here. Look at this.
This is interesting. Defensive rebound percentage. UCF right now is 7th in the conference through 2 games. 63%. They have rebounded on defense 63% of their opponent's shots and given up 28 offensive rebounds. All right. They're 3rd in offensive rebound percentage, which means of UCF's own shots, they've rebounded 40% of them, and the opponents have rebounded about 60 of them. So that's pretty good. I know that they really need to improve that defensive rebound percentage. And like you were saying, Eric, guess where Tulane is?
Right at the top, right?
2nd in the league behind Cincinnati in defensive rebound percentage, 71%. So that's a little stat to keep an eye on.
That's a big one, and that Tulane game on Tuesday, that's a big one. Conference opener. That's a great stat. And even the Florida Gulf Coast, because again, Florida Gulf Coast, I mentioned, they miss about 33s a game, a lot of long rebounds. Last thing you want to do is give them 2nd and 3rd looks. That's kind of what cost them in last year's meeting against Florida Gulf Coast. So we'll see. By the way, Murph, you think Coach Dawkins maybe called Abe and said, "Hey, can you lend us a point guard here?" I mean, she's got, you mentioned, Alicia Lewis who trained.
Yeah, Abe has Coach Abe has she has too many point guards that she knows what to do with. And Johnny needs one so bad right now.
Right. Can we make a trade, a little bond? Why not? Could you use something there? If I'm Johnny, I'm just so agitated if I'm watching this, the point guards that she's got. You got Todd who can play some point. It's wild.
Is this my turn? I don't know.
We teed up the jokes for you, Murph. That's how that works.
Yes, that would be lovely. I don't know. Someone would probably have to ask Dre Fuller how he feels about that. But it probably would be better. It probably would be better right now. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up Dre Fuller, Murph, because I think Dre Fuller and Tay Sanders are 2 players that I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the year. I think have a chance to end up in their respective programs be one of the best 2-way players in the history of their programs. They're both so much fun to watch offensively and defensively. And Dre, you mentioned, he's carrying a lot right now because you're right. He's having to play more of the point than he's probably had to. He's playing a lot of times defensively. He's playing some of the best offensive guys on the other team. And Tay's kind of doing the same thing. She's kind of, in a weird way, she's kind of like the quarterback on the defensive side of the ball because she's got great length. She can cover anybody. It's a joy to watch the 2 of them very much. And I don't know if you knew this, Jeffrey. You know who Tay Sanders' sister is?
I feel like I should know, but I don't.
Zy Lewis.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, no wonder she can shoot.
I'm going to ask her the next time she's available for media availability. I will ask her about her sister and how those one-on-ones went at,
Boy, I would have loved to have had a video camera over there because they must have been unbelievably intense. But that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So UCF, again, with their coming off of the victory over LSU, 2 big games coming up this week. They're 2-0, Florida Gulf Coast and Tulane at home. FGCU Sunday at 2 p.m. ESPN Plus. Tulane Tuesday on ESPN Plus. Time to be determined. All right. A couple of odds and ends we want to wrap up before we close it out for the night. Hey, shout out to Matty Ice. Matthew Wright got the call up from the Pittsburgh Steelers and connected on his first field goal as a professional the other night from 37 yards. Also hit a couple of extra points. So that's now 2 UCF kickers who have kicked in the National Football League. Now, you being Mr. Fantasy Football there, Murph, how long do we expect Matthew Wright to actually have this job? Or could we say that he's stolen it from his predecessor? Who was it that got hurt? I forget. I used to know all the kickers, but now I don't.
That's fine. Thanks for paying attention. The predecessor, the incumbent, as it were, is Chris Boswell.
For some reason, I was always ready to say like Josh Brown, but that was like a decade ago.
Yeah, that was. But, time moves quickly.
It does.
That's what we say about 2020. Boy, it sure has been a fast year.
It's been, yeah.
So remember, when the Steelers originally signed Matty as a undrafted free agent in 2019, they brought him in to really compete against Chris Boswell, who was coming off of a really bad 2018 season. And then, of course, even though I think Wright did fine in that preseason, I think he was 5 of 6. Boswell went on to have a really, really good 2019 season. So you could say that he was inspired by the competition that Matt Wright gave him that preseason. I will say, Jeff, we may not have seen the last of Matthew Wright. Certainly, he will be on this team, the active roster, as long as Boswell is out with his hip injury.
Yeah.
And on Wednesday, Boswell did not practice. So,
I did see that. Yeah, I just pulled it up. He is listed as a DNP. So
yeah, so we will go through the week and see. And Mike Tomlin hasn't really speculated on if he's confident or not, or optimistic or not, if Boswell will be back. But if he's not back, Matthew Wright's going to kick again. And well, if he is back, and by the way, he'll kick again on a national TV game. It's Sunday night against the Buffalo Bills. So it's a big time deal there. And then obviously if Chris Boswell is healthy to go, then Matthew Wright will be put back on the practice squad.
Can we just real quick in a game against Washington, and then this game is going to be, and then the next game is going to be at Buffalo. Can we just real quick just have a little moment of appreciation for Matthew Wright here, and I'll tell you why. First of all, that turf in Pittsburgh is notoriously crappy for kickers. It's no secret why kickers struggle in that place. It's because I swear they play on St. Augustine grass. It's just awful. And Matthew was right on the money. Pittsburgh does not try long field goals. They just don't because of that turf. But your job as a kicker with the Steelers is sort of unique in all of football in that you're basically expected to make everything from about 45 in, and then 46 out, it's like, whatever, roll the dice. We're probably going to go for it anyway. So in comes Matthew Wright in the month of December, no less, from his engineering job, and kicks in this game against Washington. Even though it was a loss, hey, he accounted for five of their 17 points. And now he gets to go to Buffalo, which is also going to be cold, national TV game. That could be a close game. There's going to be pressure. And he's stepped up his game so far. That for in your first NFL debut, like for kickers, man, like they always talk about, I always want my shot. Like that was his shot right there. I mean, I think if he missed one, who knows what would have happened. But he was 3 for 3, field goal, 2 extra points, and that's. You might say, well, that's what he's supposed to do. Yeah, that doesn't make it any easier. That's hard to do what he just did, especially on that turf. So I mean, big ups to Matthew Wright.
Anybody who watched NFL football this previous weekend, especially in Week 13, there were so many missed kicks. I was facing a team that had Dan Bailey. He missed 3 kicks.
Yeah, it was Greg
Zuerlein of the Cowboys missed 3 kicks. There were a lot of guys. Justin Tucker missed a field goal less than 40 yards, which he has never done. He had 70 straight 40 yards or in conversions, and he missed one. Yeah. It was a bad week, but yet Matthew Wright, perfect, 100%.
Matthew Wright's out here like, what's all your guys' problem? I made everything.
Yeah. Hey, Murph. So that's big, though. I mean,
best kicking percentage in NFL history belongs to Matthew Wright. 100%.
Hey, Murph. So this week is for many leagues fantasy football playoffs. Start or sit Matthew Wright.
Oh, I'm just as shocked as this is Mackenzie Milton leaving. What?
Would you start or sit Matthew Wright?
Start him. Why not? It's a kicker.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. But on a larger issue, if you play in a fantasy league with kickers, I'll go to my soapbox here and go, stop it. Stop it. Get out of every league that has kickers in it. They are completely unpredictable.
Yeah, you hear that, Lopez?
Please stop playing in leagues with kickers. They are the bane of our existence. Stop doing it. Get out of it. Go.
All right, next one. Start or sit. Gabe Davis, who, by the way, maybe it's just me. I feel like Josh Allen and the Bills' offense is better when Gabe Davis is on the field and John Brown is not. I don't know what it is, but it seems like Gabe – I mean, I know it sounds crazy. I mean, John's a good receiver, but he's been hurt a lot. I don't know, but Josh Allen seems to be playing his best games, and it usually involves a Gabe Davis touchdown. So maybe that's just perception-wise. But your thoughts on Gabe Davis, who will be in that Sunday night game you just mentioned against the Steelers?
Well, Josh Allen arguably did play his best game of the year without John Brown and with Gabe Davis this past weekend, finding Gabe Davis for a wide open touchdown, which for some reason Gabe has a knack of doing. This is like, Gabe Davis scored 5 touchdowns this year, and I can recall 3 of them in which there was not a defender within 5 yards of him. I don't know what it is about Gabe Davis scoring blown coverage touchdowns, but he's doing it. I would also say that before this, Josh Allen's worst games have come without John Brown. So no, it isn't true that he's better without John Brown, because very, very critical of John Brown being on the field. But without John Brown, Gabe Davis is out here playing 95 to 100% of the snaps, and it's huge.
And running uncontested in the San Francisco 49ers secondary, apparently. I
mean, Richard Sherman is like, oh, it's a zone. No, it's man. It had to be the safety's fault, because I don't believe that Richard Sherman doesn't know what he's doing on that play. He's a Stanford guy. He's one of the best corners to ever do it. Richard Sherman knows what his job is. Clearly, the safety did not, because he released Gabe Davis to nobody.
Well, something, Gabe Davis just has that stuff over Stanford guys. What can we say, right?
Wow.
Paulson and Debo, and now Richard Sherman.
Wow.
That was an ELO track right there. That was.
Woo! I'm glad I'm rubbing off on people.
I know. By the way, Murph, your comment about playing in fantasy football leagues with kickers, I think a certain Ian McDougal would not appreciate that. Just saying.
I know
he would not let he would himself. Yeah, a former kicker himself. I think he would call that a communist football league. But anyway.
Wow.
All kickers are out. Get them out. They're all gone. It's brutal having them in fantasy. It's really it's pointless. It's a pointless exercise.
Hey,
I would say Gabe Davis is a sort of high ceiling, low floor wide receiver 3 in your 12 to 14 team leagues. It's not an awful matchup. Like, the Steelers' defense is banged up. They've lost a lot of pass rushers. The Bills should be able to protect Josh Allen and give him time. The problem there is, even without John Brown, Gabe isn't seeing a ton of targets. So you're really hoping that of the 4 or 5 targets that Gabe does see, he turns them into something big. And granted, he's done that, but that's not predictive of anything. So he's high risk, high reward, wide receiver 3 in your 14-team leagues. But if you play daily fantasy, which you should, because it's really fun, Gabe is a fantastic cheap option because he does have that high ceiling. Yeah, it could lead you to nothing, but if he gets 60 yards and a touch, and I don't know what his price is this week, but he's probably not. He's not being very expensive. That's a lot of value. So you could slip Gabe Davis into your wide receiver spot as as your third wide receiver. Spend up elsewhere. You can roster Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams, and Gabe Davis. It'd be great.
This has been your fantasy football update with Brian Murphy. Catch him on DraftKings Nation.
Who turned the heater on? I'm so hot right now.
By the way, and some statistical notes on Gabe Davis in 12 games played. He's been thrown at 39 times. He's got 25 catches for 422 yards. That's
a 17. Screw John Brown.
17 yard per catch average and 5 touchdowns. And of his 25 catches, this is the part that I like, 19 of them have been for first downs.
I will say, Gabe, I've said this all year, Gabe has had a much bigger role than I ever expected him to have in this offense in year. And granted, no one expected this offense to be as dynamite as it has been this year with Josh Allen and those guys. I just figured, obviously, with John Brown, with Stephon Diggs, with Josh Allen being a so-so quarterback, throwing-wise, that Gabe was going to struggle. Not only has he not struggled, but he's really helped his offense in those weeks in which there has not been John Brown. Stretching the field.
You guys were all over Josh Allen's case in the preseason, and now look what's happening.
Yeah. Wait. No one else was?
Now look what's happening. I know. I'm just saying. 70. Last year he was 58%. This year he's 70%.
No, I mean, completion percentage is kind of a joke. I mean, Derek Carr has a high completion percentage. Who cares?
Yeah, but he's also thrown for 3,400 yards, which is already a career high by at least 400 yards. 26 touchdowns, new career high. He's got only 8 interceptions compared to 9 from last year, and a quarterback rating of 106. You can't tell me Gabe Davis hasn't had anything to do with that, by the way.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying he actually has much more to do than I ever thought he would.
I know.
He certainly has been among the UCF offensive players. Like, he's been even better than Latavius Murray. Certainly better than my preseason favorite of Jordan Akins, who like has got opportunity, just he hasn't really done it. It's been kind of rough. He dropped 2 touchdowns on Thanksgiving. But yeah, Gabe's been.
So
is
he number one? Is
solid.
he like, if you had to give an MVP for the Knight NFL Player of the Year, UCF Knight NFL Player of the Year, is it Gabe? Would you give it to Gabe right now?
I'm like blanking on all of the UCF players.
Or is
who are
it
in the
Matt
pros.
Prater? Or maybe it's Matt Prater. I mean, he's having another Pro Bowl type year as a kicker. Speaking of, as much as you love kickers.
Do you want to get MVP to a kicker? Like, I don't know. It's kind of rough.
He's having a record year, right? Hasn't he had like 2 or 3 games where he's hit from 50 plus more than once?
Yeah, he's actually got the record for most 50-yard field goals now.
Yeah,
and how many schools have 2 kickers in the pros? There's only 32 kicking jobs. UCF's got 1/16 of those jobs.
There you go.
I'll take it. I love it. Tay Murray, by the way, this year, 568 yards. He's averaging 4.5 a carry. So, I mean, at least it's going to extend his career a bit playing alongside Alvin Kamara. I mean, we know that much.
Gabe's certainly been more consistent with Rashad Perryman, who's been on that team in New York. The one that's not the Giants.
Team in New York.
And it's not even in New York, it's in New Jersey. But yeah, so maybe he was up there, because obviously guys, like, I don't want to be like harsh, but like it's not been a great year for Shaquille Griffin. Like, Shaq Griffin is at a really out there, and then even before he got hurt, it was a really rough time for Shaquille Griffin. Tristan Hill had his ACL tear, which was really unfortunate.
Yeah.
I know some other UCF guys have got
Mike Hughes neck injury out.
Yep. Blake Bortles was out of that one game in Denver because of the COVID situation in their quarterback room. He didn't get the chance to play.
Rob Calabrese got denied a chance to start in the NFL.
That's really the tragedy of the year.
Well, because the NFL was afraid that he was going to, break every NFL record.
Blake Bortles didn't get a chance. Blake Bortles didn't get a chance to play because he didn't wear his mask. People, wear your mask, Blake. And with Mike Hughes, that's really sad, because I with his history of neck injuries now, you wonder what his career future is, and is he able to play again? Like, honestly, that could be career threatening with what he's going through with his neck injuries. I feel bad for him. So, and then we saw Adrian Killens in one game. I'm literally thinking off the top of my head, like, who could compete for Gabe Davis for UCF NFL Player of the Year, but
probably Murray. It's got to be Murray. I mean, Murray's been steady for that role, and it's a tough role because some games he's involved a lot, some games he's not used at all. Mm-hmm. But he's been productive.
Some games he's just a straight touchdown vulture too.
Right,
I think it's pretty fun.
I would probably lean towards Latavius at this point, just because he's on pace for about 700-800 yards, and I agree with you. You can't give it to a kicker. Not a kicker that blew the Hawaii Bowl, especially. I'm sorry.
Traquan Smith's had sort of another Traquan type of year. He's kind of not really taking that next step in that offense. Sometimes not his fault, because Taysom Hill's not a very good passer. But he's kind of is what he is. AJ Boye has been hurt for most of the year. That was tough.
Apparently.
Yeah, now he's under suspension because we won't talk about it, but yeah, I think AJ got hoodwinked. I think a lot of certainly the players in Houston did, and I think AJ's a part of it, and I don't think it's their fault. It sounds like they got the wool pull over their eyes, but hey, you got to know what's going in your body, man. You got to know what you're taking, even if someone's trying to pull a fast one. But yeah, boy, I would not have guessed at the end of the year, and we're getting close, that not only has Gabe Davis been productive, he might be the best UCF NFL player this season. My God, what? Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I will say in his defense that Matt Prater did win has won 2 NFC Special Teams Player of the Week honors this year. So there's that. Mm-hmm. He had one after the Arizona game where he made 4 field goals plus the game winner, and then the one against Washington where he hit a 59-yarder, 59 yards as at the end of the game to win it. So congrats to Matt. But it's not like last year when he threw a touchdown pass. So anyway. But if he does, like, I wouldn't rule it out. And I hope Pat McAfee calls that again, because that was the call of the year. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Eric and Brian, we've got what we're going to be following. Obviously, both basketball teams as they get ready for their weekend tilts. Eric, where are you going to be this weekend?
I will be at home watching football and watching UCF against Gardner or against Florida Gulf Coast, and following the UCF guys in the NFL to see who is. Can Gabe Davis, prime time Gabe Davis, Matthew Wright,
yes.
Sunday Night Football.
Prime time Matthew Wright. We used to do the graphic, for the football games. We would have the UCF guys in the NFL, and you would have quite often like matchups between two teams that had UCF guys on them, and we missed out on the chance to have a Matt Wright versus Gabe Davis graphic because the season's over. So bummer on that. But
well, you know who's going to be watching that game is a young quarterback in Hawaii by the name of Mackenzie Milton. Mackenzie Milton. If I speak
I was going to say, is he now a McDonald's franchise now? Like what?
I don't know. He can own whatever. But I did write about him this week on Black Gold Banneret.
He's a very rare blend of Hawaiian and Irish. It's very rare, but yes, Mackenzie McMilton. It definitely has happened.
It's a good column. It's a good column that you should check out on blackandgoldbanneret.com. Top 10 places. Yep.
Yeah, where he might end up in 2021. So make sure you check that out, among other things there. So we're gonna be following the Milton Watch, baby. Milton Watch and signing day, boys, a week from next week. Woo!
Yeah. And don't forget, we're also on Bowl Watch too, because we're still waiting to see who our opponent's going to be in the Boca Raton Bowl on the 22nd.
Murph's got all that covered, right, Murph?
So
sure, whatever you say, boy.
All right, thank you so much for listening. Remember to follow us at blackandgoldbanneret.com on SB Nation, home of the UCF Knights on the SB Nation Network. Also, follow us on Twitter at UCF_Banneret and at Facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret. And you can follow us each individually. I'm at Jeff_Sharon. Eric is at Eric Lopez Elo. And of course, Brian is at Spokes_Murphy. For all of us at Black and Gold Banneret, thank you so much for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We will catch you again next week.